an assistant position. Woo-hoo. I'll do my best. 200.
200, yes. Good morning, Timothy. I heard you saying that behind the scenes and also almost saw you dancing there. So thank you very much for being here for the 200th episode of Japanese Politics One-on-One. And to everybody joining us today, good morning to you too. It is November, sorry, it's December 8th, and it is almost the end of the year on a beautiful, beautiful day here in Tokyo. And Timothy is reporting from, where is that,
Katsuyama.
Timothy?
I'm
From
in
Katsuyama.
It's
Right.
just a little bit blustery and cold outside, so I'm reporting from inside my vehicle.
Your vehicle. Okay. Yes. Well, it is important to keep warm. A lot of people worry about you when you don't do that or when you keep, cold or hot or whatever. So thank you for taking care of that. And I don't want to keep anybody waiting. So, Timothy, let's see what we're going to talk about today.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Maya. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. We both so much appreciate you're joining this team and keeping abreast of what's going on in Japanese politics by following our weekly podcast. Maya, thank you so much for terrifying me so much for 200 episodes to show up
Always,
every
yes.
Sunday, 200 consecutive times. I mean, what do you do 200 consecutive times? I mean, it's very rare. And I really am honored by the audience and the quality and the insight that is shared. For example, Byron's predicted what was going to happen with Tamaki last week.
Yes.
So we have a very sophisticated audience, a lot of Japan hands, budding Japan hands. And the other thing that's kind of interesting is that since we started this, Japan politics was not that big of a hot issue, a hot button issue. And it has become one ever since, gosh, I don't know. I mean, it was even before the assassination of Prime Minister Abe, but things have just continued to increase. And I'm just so honored by the audience and the questions and people staying in touch with us. So it compels me and you, Maya, to do even more, to produce better content, to be more succinct, to have the briefings crisper and the question and answer period a little bit longer. But we thrive on your support, your likes, your comments to us. So please keep those going, because that's what compels us. We don't charge for this. It's information that's out there. We're just the ones that are putting it together and hopefully synthesizing it for you for ease of consumption. So Maya, today or on Friday, the yen closed out at 149.97, almost identical to what it closed out at last week. Over the week, South Korean President Yoon called martial law late on Tuesday night. Sometime Wednesday morning, he canceled that. He is in a lot of trouble, a vote of no confidence. He will probably be replaced. His prime minister is sitting in for him, and he will undergo a 130-day, might be 190-day review process, where they will continue to consider whether they're going to kick him out of office or not. This is a bad thing for the U.S.-Japan trilateral relationship. Mr. Kishida was putting a lot of emphasis on that, visited with Mr. Yoon several times. Mr. Ishiba has visited with him twice, and was planning to visit with him in South Korea in January before the new diet session started. It looks like Mr. Suga will be visiting before this year is out, but this really puts on tenterhooks the relationship between Japan and South Korea. The fellow who is the opposition leader who is likely to replace Mr. Yoon as president has already stated that the relationship between Japan and South Korea is predatory in nature. So he's not really a very big friend of the relationship. So there's a lot of worry there. Ishin-no-kai, this time last week, after watching this podcast, voted for a new party leader. Nobuyuki Baba was asked to open the seat up, to resign, and open it up for a 4-candidate election. As predicted here, the governor of Osaka won by a huge majority. Hirofumi Yoshimura is the governor of Osaka. He threw his hat into the ring, and he won by an astounding majority. Of the 10,740 votes cast, he received 8,570 of them. The second runner-up, upper house member and former governor of Kanagawa, Mr. Matsuzawa, received 1,000 and change. So the leadership of Ishin is now in new hands. They don't have a party leader inside the diet. So the governor is the leader of Ishin, but according to their internal rules, they must have somebody within the parliament to be the leader in the political sphere. And it looks like that will be Mr. Seiji Maihara, who is a favorite of the governor's. So there's a little bit of movement to go on there, but it's a very critical time for Ishin-no-kai. They are the second largest opposition party behind the Constitutional Democratic Party, and very close behind them is the Democratic Party for the People. Mr. Tamaki Yuichiro was suspended as the leader of the Democratic Party of the People, a very shocking announcement to some of us, but not to all of us, as we will hear later. But he has been suspended as party leader for 3 months as a consequence of this scandal, this sexual scandal that was reported by a weekly magazine in Tokyo just as the Diet was coming together to elect the new prime minister. So a very embarrassing timing for him. It was decided for him to step down for 3 months. On March 3rd, he will come back apparently, but his Diet Affairs chief, Mr. Motohiko Furukawa, will step in as a replacement. So what happens after that? He's been asked publicly when March 3rd rolls around, will you come back and reassume your position? And he didn't say very clearly what the choice would be. But he was a firebrand and an apparent big-time leader for this burgeoning party. They grew 250% in this last election, the number of seats they have in the lower house. So a little bit of turmoil there. Let me see. Visa criteria has been eased for Chinese visitors from Japan. So this means that Japanese visitors going to China now can go. It's been 4 years. Those visa restrictions have been relaxed. And at the same time, the Chinese, following on the heels of the November 15th meeting in Peru, Mr. Ishibo met with the Chinese leader there. They signed some agreements, but the Chinese also decided to allow visitors from Japan to start visiting China as well. So that's been a 4-year hiatus. They've also changed it from a 15-day visa-free visit to a 30-day visa-free visit. Previously to that, Japan would allow Chinese tourists to come in, but they put a lot of restrictions on it. They had to show that they were a gold card, credit card member, that they had residency status, that they had a certain amount of income. So it really kept a lot of the tourists away as a kind of an application process to this kind of tit for tat. And so it looks like there is some movement being made there. They've put some effort on the China-Japan relationships, and it looks like we're getting a little bit of benefit from that. Governor Koike has announced just this last week, in fact, she is committed to a 4-day work week for Tokyo workers, and it will go into effect in April 15th. It is being experimented with other prefectures, but this is the first time for the governor of Tokyo to state clearly. It's particularly with regard to providing relief for women, women with children, that sort of thing, but it applies to all workers, and will go into effect in April. Maya, that's it. I'd like to get into Diet Affairs after our brief thank you for our sponsors.
Thank you. Yes, and word of thank you, of course, to our first sponsor, one of them, Kanchu. Kanagawa Chuo Jutaku or Kanchu. You can find them at kanchu.com. They offer services in selling and buying real estate in Tokyo and Yokohama, and the company also does property management and investment property. If you want to work with them, connect with James Howell at Kanchu.com. It is his email address is james@kanchu.com. And if you have a project in mind, he will talk with you and customize their services to match your needs. So that is, property management and investment property. So james@kanchu.com. So Timothy, once again, it is over to you. Let's continue. Diet affairs. Well,
Great. Thank you very much. So just to bring you up to speed, you might remember 2 weeks ago, the Prime Minister returned from Peru and Brazil. He had the G20, he had APEC. He had this hopeful schedule with President-elect Trump. That did not quite work out. He came back to Japan, and then Monday, he made a speech to. Let me see. He came back. He made a speech to the Parliament, to the entire plenary session, about what he was going to be doing in this extraordinary diet session that goes until the 21st of this month. So we've got 13 days left. He talked about his policies, what he's going to be doing going forward as a minority government, how he's going to be working with the opposition, how he's going to be friendly, and he's going to modify some of the policies that they're pursuing. He talked a little bit about a supplementary budget. He talked about a lot of different things, social issues as well. This was an opportunity for the entire Diet, the upper house and the lower house, to listen to what his policy statements were. After that, on Monday and Tuesday, there was also an opportunity for the Diet to question him, also in the plenary session. So this is in the large, what would you call it? The Diet proper, where they make votes and where the emperor comes in to open the house of the Diet, where Diet leaders would come up to the podium and then they would question in front of everybody the prime minister and the cabinet and ask questions and stuff like that. So it wasn't a totally confrontational as it is this next week. So last week it was somewhat polite, I think you can say. It's a delicate balance. The prime minister and the LDP cannot be so boisterous and so pushy anymore. They realize that. And the opposition also knows that they have an opportunity here to state their claim and to actually extract some concessions, because it is a minority government. If the entire opposition party ganged up and got together, they would defeat the government, the LDP and Komeito, clearly. The difficulty there is that maybe somebody would join the LDP so that they wouldn't lose. And the other difficulty is that getting all of the opposition parties to unify to achieve that would be somewhat difficult, but it's not impossible. And people are considering that even as we speak today. So then on Thursday and Friday, 2 weeks ago, there was more of an opportunity for the prime minister to be questioned. And that rolled into the weekend. We had our weekend, the LDP, I'm sorry, the Ishin had their election. We rolled into Monday and Tuesday, where the prime minister actually was questioned more aggressively. There was an opportunity for the opposition parties to state their claims and to question him. It's all on live TV. And then it rolled into Thursday and Friday, where they talked about the supplemental budget, about reform of campaign contributions, and about the floor of the 1.03 million yen tax-free salary status, to move that up. The Democratic Party for the People wants to push that up almost by maybe 80% to about 178. That is their push, and they're holding everything else kind of in abeyance as a result of that. They want a commitment on moving that up, and if there's movement there, then other issues that are of more importance to the LDP, for example, or to Komeito, will be relaxed somewhat, so that they can achieve that. The reason why I'm going through this kind of tedious timeline is because there are only 13 days left, and look how much time we have gone through since the extraordinary diet session already started. So they did a lot of background work before that. The LDP, Komeito, and the Democratic Party for the People, a little bit of discussions with the Constitutional Democratic Party too, decided on what the supplemental budget would be even before this session started. So they came up with something around 13.9 trillion yen for a supplemental budget. That needs to be passed by the Diet, but they decided that kind of preemptively so that they could get onto the bigger business. The bigger business is, number one, raising this floor of tax-free employment status, and the second one is political reform. So this next week is going to be passing the bill. They will be debating the supplemental budget this week. They hope to be passing it probably in next week, not this coming week, but the debates will be this week in the upper house, then the lower house, then back to the upper house, and then put up to a vote probably around the 18th. And then once they finish that, then they move on to the other bills. There are 4 formal bills that are under consideration. And a lot of the Diet time that is being spent now is dealing with things that are beyond what these Diet bills are. 4 Diet bills have been masticated, they've gone through committee, and they are ready for a vote in this extraordinary Diet session. Sometimes these bills are not ripe, or they're ripe, but the timing isn't right. So, for example, the active cybersecurity bill was pushed off. Maya, can you turn your microphone off? I can hear you stabbing your cat. Thank you. These 4 bills are promoted and pushed to the Diet by the Diet scheduling committee. And let me just tell you what they are. The 4 are the bill on measures to abolish the Act on special measures concerning public use of deep underground space. That was a bill, or that is a bill currently under consideration, promoted by the House of Councilors by the Japan Communist Party. The second bill under consideration is a bill on measures to be taken regarding income tax in order to deal with the increase in income tax burden exceeding wage increases. That's the raising the floor of tax-free income. That was a house initiated in the lower house, the House of Representatives, and it was a bill that was promoted by the Democratic Party for the People. The bill to amend the political funds control law is the big kahuna there. That's bill number 3. They want to amend the political funds control. That was initiated by the Japan Communist Party in the House of Councilors. And then finally, the bill to repeal political party subsidy law, which is how the subsidies are paid by the government into each of the political parties. This is a bill to repeal that. That law has been in effect for maybe 15 years. That is also being promoted by the upper house, by the Japan Communist Party. So these are bills that somewhat cut against what current policy is within the LDP. 2 of them have come out of the Japan Communist Party. And since they are bills, they do require a vote. So those bills also need to be considered. I think between now and the next remaining 13 days, this next week will be devoted to the supplemental bill, a big bill, 1.3.9 trillion yen. That's a lot of money. How much is that in other money? It's sorry, I don't have it written down, but that's almost as much as the Japanese government is going to spend on their military spending in 1 year. So that's a big number injected into the economy within the next several months. So certainly before April 1st, it's a supplemental bill. To pass the Diet, the national bill, that is passed on April 1st, that doesn't go into effect for a year afterwards. But a supplemental budget is money that goes into the economy pretty quickly, and that's why it's hot on the plate. So what we've got is the supplemental budget to be discussed and polished off for a vote in 2 weeks, finishing up this week. I hope that's clear. Then you've got 1 week left to consider these other three bills. It's just it doesn't seem like it's physically possible to to consider that, considering the time that they are spending on this supplemental budget, and also considering how contentious the political funds control law is going to be. That is being submitted by the Japanese Communist Party, so you know it's going to be tough. It's going to be very specific. They want to ban political contributions from corporations. That's the lifeblood of the LDP. That is the source of what we got into all this trouble with the party funds and politicians or political factions redistributing that money, circulating it within members of their factions, and as a consequence, just re-strengthening the LDP each time. So through every election cycle, they get stronger and stronger. They collect more and more political funds. They want to ban that. So that's going to be a tough, contentious issue. The LDP, just for consideration, for this year alone in 2024, received about 2.6 billion in 2023. So that's a lot of money. You can do a lot with that. And if you're one of the parties, the opposition parties, and you're not taking advantage of that for whatever political or psychological or spiritual reasons, you're not doing that sort of thing, the LDP is always going to crush you during times of election. So they want that bill, that law to be strengthened so that there are no political funds and that everybody's playing from the same field. So by the 18th, that bill should pass on the supplemental budget. These other bills, it's just going to the 21st is difficult to conceive. It is likely that the Diet will extend this session, this extraordinary session, but there's not much time they can extend it to. If it's going to be, if it's supposed to end on the 21st, it can be extended a couple of days, but you've got, you're moving into, the end of the year, and I think probably there are only a few days where they can really legitimately hold business. So it remains to be seen. The Diet schedule is just 13 days from today. So you can also anticipate that there's going to be a lot of controversy. If the Democratic Party for the People gets what they want in setting the floor for tax-free salaries, they will be more amenable to the other bills that come up. If they don't get everything that they want, they're going to drag their feet. They're going to extend Diet hearings. The Diet hearings in the Budget Committee are being the chairmanship is in the hands of the Constitutional Democratic Party, as you know. So that hasn't happened in 20 years, that the LDP hasn't controlled that very important position. It doesn't mean that the LDP doesn't have a strong showing of members inside the committee when they come up for a vote, but they don't have enough, even with Komeito, to railroad things through as they used to. So it's a different ball of wax, and I think Mr. Ishiba understands that. When you listen to his speech, you can tell it's not as powerful. He can't be as aggressive and as determined a speaker as maybe Mr. Kishida or certainly as Mr. Abe was when they controlled so much of the of both houses of Congress. So it looks like, from my view, that the Diet will be extended, and they probably just won't have enough time to get to the political control review. It's just too delicate for the LDP. They've got a time frame that they have to act within. It's going to spill over into the new year, and it's going to create problems there, I predict. It's just too much to get done, and not enough time to get it done, and not enough unity of action to get things done. So we'll stay tuned to that and continue to report to you. I'm going to wrap up quickly, but I wanted to give you just a military update. The Japan self-defense forces, well, actually, the Japanese government has decided to extend military aid to the Philippines. This is to help them in territorial disputes, which have been intensifying. We've been following this between China and the Philippines. Japan has decided to give or grant to the Philippines 1.6 billion yen, that's about 10.7 million US dollars, for coastal surveillance and radar systems, and inflatable boats and other related equipment for the Philippine Air Force. So this is under a program called the Overseas Security Assistance Framework. It was created as a part of the 2022 National Security Strategy. That was one of the 3 documents that was produced on the tail end of Mr. Abe's administration, but accepted by Mr. Kishida, one of the defining documents of how Japan is going to integrate and protect itself with the surrounding countries. And this is the first budget for that's being distributed. They have a budget of about 2 billion yen. They've just decided to give 1.6 billion to the Philippines, and they're going to extend the budget now from the 2 billion to the 5 billion in the upcoming budget. So they want to formalize these kinds of assistance, not only to the Philippines, but also to Indonesia, Mongolia of all places, and to Djibouti. So there's growing flexing that's being pursued by Japan, probably is related to Japan's desire to export defensive equipment. It can't export offensive equipment under the Article 9 of the Constitution, but they are developing this process, this military weight of building sophisticated and exportable military equipment for defensive purposes. So there's a huge push that's going on there, and I think that's part of this grant that's going to the Philippines. It is a bit of an experiment, I believe, a bit of a challenge to see how much they can push without violating the Article 9 of the Constitution. But everybody knows at some point in time, with everything that's going on, a revision of the Constitution, particularly Article 9, is imminent. It's just not going to happen in this diet session with the way that things are fractured, but it is something that needs to be considered. The U.S. Space Force, you know about that. It was established under Donald Trump in his first administration. There's the Army, Navy, Marines, and U.S. Space Force. They launched an office in Japan just this last week, staffed with about 15 to 20 employees. It's over at Yokota Air Base, and it will be focusing on interoperability and to boost coordination with you might have noticed that Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin was in town last week. He was also in Australia, opening a lot of doors here and in Australia too. You know, Japan is not alone in this. In fact, Japan is just one of the players in this forward process of building this kind of lattice work of defense capabilities should China decide it wants to move on Taiwan. And I think there's such a growing fear that they're going to do that one way or the other. And so the strategy seems to be make it just as too painful a decision for the Chinese to make, so they'll push it off. They won't do it. They'll push it off to another day. But boy, there's a lot of effort and a lot of military prowess being focused in this region, mostly on Japan, but in the Philippines too, and also in Taiwan. The Taiwanese president visited Hawaii last week and created a huge controversy from China, criticizing the United States for sponsoring him, for supporting him, for acknowledging him because he visited a U.S. state. But I think it was the tail end of a long Pan-Pacific tour. He visited several cities, several nations in this tour. But anything that Taiwan does that irks the Chinese, you're going to hear a lot about it. Also in the news, you might have missed this, but Japan Self-Defense Forces, we talked about their amphibious team that was being trained and developed. It's been under development for several years now, training with the U.S. Marines in Okinawa and elsewhere. It turns out now that they're going to be traveling to Australia to train with U.S. and Aussie troops to once again create opportunities for interoperability and coordination. This is the first time that they will be joining a major drill like that. That hit the news too. And then finally, not militarily, but it's something of probably great interest given the large prevalence of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, that sort of thing. DMM is a very well-known crypto exchange operator in Tokyo. They've decided that they're going to go bankrupt. They're about 48.2 billion worth of coins, Bitcoins, was stolen from them in May. You might not have heard much about that, but as a consequence of this theft, they decided to close down operations and sell the remaining assets to another Bitcoin company called VC Trade. That purchase should conclude in March of next year. That's a lot of money to be stolen. When I first heard this news, I thought it might have been a hack, but apparently it was an inside job, so it is being qualified as the Bitcoins being stolen. DMM, to their credit, has repaid everybody who lost money there. But that's a pretty big deal too. 4.8 billion yen disappearing, and then them having to come up with replacing that. That's a pretty big deal. And finally, Maya, Japan marked, we've commented on this before, how warm this autumn was. This was the warmest fall on record in Japan. They've been keeping records for 126 years. This last fall was 1.9 degrees higher, warmer than it has ever been recorded. And since 1898, when they first started to keep these records, Japan has not had a hotter fall than this time. So that pushes the autumn leaves viewing, which is a big tourist activity here in Japan. Usually people would be driving to Karuizawa and up into the mountains to look at the leaves, and you'd see it here in Gaian as well, the change of the leaves. That didn't happen until just weeks ago, and they say right now the best time to go drive up to Karuizawa and see the autumn leaves is this next week. So it's really been pushed back, and this last summer, you might have remembered, was the hottest on record too. So there's a little bit of fluctuation there. I don't know what you might want to think about that, but it is an interesting thing that's going on. That's it for me right now, Maya. I'd like to turn it over to you and then hit the questions and answers so we can wrap this thing up and I can get back to work.
Thank you, Timothy. And I want to say thank you to everybody who sent us congratulatory notes. I appreciate that. Yes, thank you, Mario. I heard that you might have been busy, but you are here now in Clubhouse. We appreciate that. We appreciate your support and your interest in Japanese politics in this podcast as well, because we are here because you are here with us.
Yeah.
And yes, to everybody. If you are there, if you haven't given us, a notification or a sign that you're here with us, just let us know by hitting like or subscribe or also following us on LinkedIn. So, Timothy, before that, actually, we have something else that we need to do. We have quite a few questions, but I would like to say thank you to our other sponsor, Houze Inc., where Hana Urushizawa Howell actually responds in either Japanese or English. Houze Inc. Offers services in custom home design, construction, and renovations. They also do commercial building construction. If you want to work with them, reach out to Hana Urushizawa Howell on LinkedIn. You will also find her contact details in the description of the YouTube video. She is available at hana@kanchu.com, so she responds to both, as a representative of both companies. Thank you very much, Hannah, and thank you very much, James, for being our sponsors. Now we can move to the questions. Once again, Byron, thank you very much for your question, for actually being here first thing in the morning and for letting us know last week that Mr. Tamaki was going to be suspended. And we continue with your questions because you always post them before everybody else. So, first of all, Okay. Now, your first comment, Byron, is that while the suspension from leadership of Mr. Tamaki is supposed to be for 3 months, it could well be for longer in view of the upcoming upper house election in the summer of 2025. And the question following this comment is, Ishin national leader Mr. Yoshimura stated that he would work towards an opposition seat arrangement to prevent vote splitting for the upper house election to ensure their victory. Might the opposition also defeat the government after the passage of the national budget of March 31st, 2025 in a vote of no confidence to ensure a double upper house, lower house election? Timothy, what do you assess this probability? And Timothy seems to have some connectivity issues right at the moment. So I apologize for this. We need to probably wait until he tunes in once again. Well, in the meantime, I would like to share some of the comments we got. Yes, thank you, Diana. Thank you very much for this. Some of the comments we got congratulatory there. Oh, that's okay. Just a moment. Here we go. Okay, Timothy is back with us. Timothy, I think that you lost the second. You didn't hear the second part of the question, right?
I didn't hear the first part.
You didn't hear the first time. Okay. I imagine that you shouldn't move that much, so that just stay kind of quiet there and still. Okay, let me read the question to you once again. And apologies to everybody who has to hear it a second time. Okay, the national leader of Ishin-no-kai, Mr. Yoshimura, stated that he would work towards an opposition seat arrangement to prevent vote splitting for the upper house election to ensure their victory. Might the opposition also defeat the government after the passage of the national budget on March 21st, 2025, in a vote of no confidence to ensure a double upper house, lower house election? Timothy, what is your take on this?
Who's the question from?
Byron.
I have to be careful then.
Yes, please be. Yes.
Yeah, I think the possibility of having a double election this year is very high. And that decision, it's a little bit early to predict it. It really depends on how the tea leaves are looking for the opposition camps. If the opposition camps are starting to make good headway and the LDP has made some missteps, or in fact they're not able to cobble together something that makes the Diet move forward briskly, or at least not lethargically, the voting public will be they'll be agitated. They'll be agitated by the opposition parties as well, particularly the Ishin-no-kai, who wants to reestablish themselves. The strategy of Mr. Yoshimura is to integrate a little bit better with the opposition parties, and also, like the question states, make sure we don't do vote splitting. So I'll take this district, you take that district. I won't run a candidate there, you don't run your candidate here. If they can do that, they can enhance their numbers and they can defeat the LDP, because they are at a little bit of a low appreciation. So if that appreciation goes lower and they are successful in making sure that they're not fighting among each other, they don't have 4 candidates for a seat, they only have 3 or maybe 2, then the possibility of them succeeding in that and then enhancing their role, yeah, then it could be that the Constitutional Democratic Party combined with Ishin, combined with the Democratic Party for the People, who is now considering being in bed with the LDP, but not quite. Yeah, there's plenty of opportunity to to form a coalition, to kick out the LDP, and to force a joint election, or a double election, when the election for half of the House of Councillors goes up this summer.
Yes, I also think that it is not it is worth noting that basically Mr. Ishiba has talked about being polite and, well, a kind of quiet debate because maybe he doesn't want to really irk the opposition. And I guess that, well, at the end of the day, we're going to see less
Mhm.
controversy and less confrontation, even though this is a minority government, because Mr. Ishiba realizes that going forward with this minority government, well, they do need to be very careful and actually not upset the opposition parties. I don't know what your thoughts on this are, Timothy, but, well, I would appreciate them.
Well, in this environment, any kind of scandal, any kind of misstep will be just played to the hilt by the opposition party. You'll hear about it over and over and over again. So, yeah, keep your eye on that. The cabinet that Mr. Ishiba has selected has not been tested. It hasn't really been run through its paces. Typically, when a new cabinet is formed, there are a couple of not bad apples, but there are a couple of people who do have enemies, and then these enemies kind of lambast them. And within 3 months, there's a bit of a change that goes on there. It almost happens with regular frequency. So that hasn't happened yet. That will probably happen in January, February. And in this delicate environment, yeah, any kind of misstep by the LDP in particular is just going to be played to the hilt.
Right. So I also wonder, you mentioned the policies that were going to be voted, or actually the bills that are
Right.
currently under consideration. And we haven't talked recently about the increase of tax for actually supporting the defense budget. So, and I think that it is coming up, right? It is coming up, and it is a very delicate time at the moment because the LDP is not very happy with the proposition by the well, the Constitutional Democratic for the People, right, to actually raise the non-taxable income of
Right.
the nation here, right? And well, what is going to happen there? Do you think that the dynamics will be actually more, how can I say, more tense with this
Yeah.
when we talk about the defense budget as well? And what is the main opposition party? What is their stance on that defense budget and the tax for the budget as well? If you can comment on this.
Okay, there are a couple issues that are weaved into what it was you were talking about. So first, the defense budget, 4 years, each year increasing a little bit. It's going to grow until it takes 2% of the national budget, the GDP of Japan. That was the plan under Mr. Abe and Mr. Kishida. Mr. Kishida initiated that in year one. We are now in year two. Year one was more than 25% of the 4 years. Year two is about running at 27, 28% of the entire budget. And they're running into difficulties not only because the strength of the yen is fluctuating and most of the defense and offensive capabilities are being purchased from overseas. So they have to pay in basically dollars for that, and the dollars are more expensive. But even Mr. Kishida was a little bit soft on telling the Japanese people how this is going to be paid for. This is 2%. This is an increase of 100%. How is it going to be paid for? He said, I'm not going to increase the consumption tax. It's currently at 10%. It's not going to go to 12%. We're going to hit tobacco. We're going to make those guys who smoke tobacco pay for some of it. We're going to sell off some assets. But he really never came to terms with it. Mr. Suga never touched it.
Mhm.
And Mr. Ishiba hasn't touched it yet either. It is what is it, the gorilla in the room? Nobody really wants to talk about it. They've made commitments internationally. Every week we talk about the defense budget and what they're doing, the expenditures, and how they're integrating with other like-minded countries. And people are scratching their heads wondering, where is all this money coming from? And now you've got the Democratic Party for the People saying this tax-free salary, it needs to go up from 1.03 million yen per year to almost 2 million. It's probably not that huge a number, but overall it does mean that the national budget needs to grow by that in order to accommodate it. So that's a bill that will go into the budget for next year. It is being considered now. Excuse me. Commitments will be made on how that money will be taken care of and what the actual figure will be. But those commitments depend on how these other bills are going to be considered. So it's a real not quite a dogfight, but yes, how they decide that issue will spill over into how much the Democratic Party for the People, the Constitutional Democratic Party, Ishin-no-kai, is going to insist that the LDP relinquish the political funds that they're receiving, political funds from corporations, how much transparency is involved, and that sort of thing. So it is a very big deal. I don't know if they'll ever, they must come clean on how the money is going to be generated, who's going to be paying for it. But at this point in time, nobody's talking about increasing the taxes or increasing the consumption tax for sure.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for that comment. And we'll be watching this, of course, and reporting about this as we move forward. Going back now to what you mentioned about Miss Koike actually introducing the 4 working day week, we have a comment from Hiroko-san here. So Hiroko-san writes, according to some survey companies that have introduced the 4-day work week, these companies see higher revenue compared to those with a 5-day work week. It is said that this is because expenses are reduced, but I think it might only be feasible for large companies here. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, about productivity and about saving costs, I've got to imagine if they were reducing the amount of office space as well, because the major expenses that companies have are, number one, employees. That's the highest expense they have. And the second highest expense is the real estate that they have for housing the employees, for having operations and production, that sort of thing. The same sort of thing is going on in the United States, where they said you can work from home. You don't have to come into the office. You just work from home 5 days a week. You do your regular hours, but you don't travel into the office. And now you have a new administration coming in saying to these government workers, screw that. You come into the office, you work, you show up, and then we'll fix this issue with the United States. Here in Japan, going from a 5-day to a 4-day work week, yeah, I think the dynamics here are, it's an acknowledgement that there just aren't enough workers to fill the jobs that are available. And also there aren't enough people having children. So particularly the women who are raising children, there's not enough sharing of household responsibilities. So it's kind of a nod to that, and to keep these women in the workforce and to keep them coming. For the first time, Japan has about 8.9% of the companies are being run by women. So this is a dramatic change from years past. So these kind of efforts, particularly by the Tokyo prefectural government, to reduce the number of days that you have to show up. And that means not just any day of the week, but you can kiss it up to a Friday, so that you have a 3-day work week. You work 4 days, you work 3, you take off for 3. That's very attractive if you can keep and maintain your salary. It's not really working from home. It's, having a complete day off. And I think if you're going to do that, then yeah, how HR administers that, so that you
Right.
work a little bit more diligently, or you work a little bit longer, or you show up earlier, that sort of thing. There's got to be a tit for a tat there, because productivity still needs to increase.
Yeah, and I think that, as Hiroko-san mentioned, basically when we think about the size of the companies, probably it is more easily doable for large corporations who still have enough human resources there. For small and medium-sized businesses, I think that it's going to be a challenge, and maybe there they will have to actually have to make a compromise, right?
Yeah.
Instead of saying you work only 4 days a week, probably you have 1 day work from home or remote work
Mhm.
instead. being in the office 5 days a week. And I don't know how it will actually play out. It seems that in Japan, when such policies are passed and applied, there is a period of adjustment, and sometimes there are adjustments actually within a certain period of time when people decide what works for them and what doesn't, and companies do the same too. And sometimes such policies are actually abolished, which is a pity, and sometimes they continue to improve, and companies, corporations, individuals continue to look for ways to actually implement them
Yeah.
in a way that suits them and works better for them.
Well, Maya, you and I both have friends, colleagues who work in some of these bigger companies. They have food that's being served, throughout the day. You can eat at any time of the day. You don't have to go outside.
Mhm.
You can sit in the office and join, in a comfortable atmosphere, maybe a workspace that's being shared with everybody. You can have a lunch, you can have coffee, you can have a meeting there, that sort of thing. But also the other side of that is that increasingly it is inescapable the number of foreign workers who are coming into Japan and doing what not menial jobs, but they're working in construction. You see them tearing down construction sites and building construction sites, not the real stuff that's being done by the big Japanese corporations that are doing it, but their subsidiary jobs. And I even went into a McDonald's the other day. The entire staff was sub-Indian continent individuals. I don't know who they were, but they were of kind of maybe Bangladesh or India or
Mhm.
Malaysia, something like that. But the entire staff was there. They were struggling with the Japanese, struggling to get the uh, especially at the sales counter, but they were all working the machines and getting things done. And I think you're going to see more and more of that. This thing by the Tokyo governor is to hopefully increase more people to stay in the workforce, and for women to have an opportunity to supplement their income by having a job. And they kind of lead the charge. It's as the government does things, then the big companies follow suit as well. So it's a bit of a wave that's approaching us, I think.
Yes, it is. And there is something actually when it comes to policies, governmental policies about immigration. I think that the government is very well aware that they cannot talk about immigration and using the word immigration. But there are actually policies that continually, very slowly, gradually continue to attract foreign workers here. And one of those policies actually is providing grants for foreign students.
Hmm.
So in Japanese universities. So I think that it is not, this policy is not moving at or expanding at the pace we would like to see it expand. But what the government does actually is provide or stimulate universities to provide grants for those students. And once those students graduate, they are also they have opportunities to stay in Japan and work for corporations here. So this is a very quiet facilitation, actually, of increasing the number of foreigners working here in Japan. And once again, it is not openly called immigration. But I want to say that despite what we think, and what we see, actually, there are forces that are moving
Yeah.
into the direction of increasing the foreign workers.
Well, it's
Yeah,
not something that we report on here, but there are a lot of things that are going on just kind of under the surface if you're not watching them. So, for example, all of these military expenditures, if you're not watching that sort of thing, you're never going to notice it. And then pretty soon you look up and you've got the airplanes, the military airplanes overhead, or they're landing military aircraft in commercial airports. And you wonder, when did that happen? How did that happen? Um, but yeah, in our particular show, Maya, we don't follow that trend, but it is something that's really unmistakable, and it's such a need for the economy here. They just
right.
don't have enough people to do the jobs that are available.
Indeed. Okay, so moving on to the next, the other comments. We've got Jean-Sébastien Boar. Thank you. Good morning, Jean, and thank you very much for commenting here. So Jean writes, some large companies in Japan also started introducing flex time and remote work for people in middle management positions and above. It's probably useful for people having children because they can adjust their work time to send them and get them from school, which reduces the number of working days would not address directly from a daily life perspective. Yes, that's a great insight actually, because if you have to be in the office from 9 to 6 every day, with the exception of one day, it doesn't help you really that much with when you have young kids. You have to send them to preschool or to school and everything. So I believe that well, the governors here and the government are looking for options, and there is definitely a move towards being more flexible, because before the pandemic we didn't see that. And companies were more stringent when it came to work hours, when it came to holidays. Nobody was talking about remote work back then. So I'm sure that we're going to see more changes here and more adjustments. Hopefully, it will be in a good direction. Okay, great. And then, Timothy, I think that, oh, let me check Clubhouse if we have questions there. Yes, so we have a comment from Mario. Mario, thank you very much for that. Actually, it is a comment about Hyogo Prefecture and, well, the scandal that is
The
still
governor there, yes.
yes, evolving there. Okay, the question from Mario is why is Hyogo governor Motohiko Saito under scrutiny for alleged bribery related to using social media in his election campaign? How does this differ from spending PR funds on traditional methods like posters or campaign vehicles? I think this is a great question, actually.
So
Yeah.
this thing with Mr. Saito, the governor of Hyogo Prefecture, they had knives out for him from the day that he was elected. There is a group within the government, within the prefectural government, within the prefecture that just doesn't like him. And the reason is because previously in Hyogo politics, the vice governor always assumed the position of the governor. So the governor would be in position, and his vice governor, when he retired, he would run for office and he was elected. That's not how this happened this last time. In a complete turn on tradition, he hopscotched over that. He beat the vice governor and he became governor of the prefecture. And almost immediately, all of the bureaucrats formed a coalition to just make life difficult for him. It was kind of somewhat reminiscent of what happened with Donald Trump in his first administration, too. And so he got lambasted for bullying. You're not doing what I told you to do. I want you to do what I told you to do. I don't want to do it because I don't like you. It was supposed to be the vice governor, and you just jumped in and you just kind of took over. And so my interpretation of this is it's just retribution for being the new guy. I don't think he's a bad governor. I don't think he's been sexually abusive. I don't think he's been lambasting and beating his employees. I think he's just one of the new guys that came in, and this new claim against him for using social media, and you got it from this girl, and maybe you're having some relationship, although that hasn't come up. But for whatever she received from you, you got a huge benefit from that in that tight election window, and because she adroitly used social media, you won. And so we're lambasting you for that too. So whatever, I mean, his toenail is crooked. He's going to get into trouble for that. And I think that's just going to be part and parcel of his administration. But I think he's got great guts. I think he is one of the leaders that we have all been clamoring for. Why do we have this kind of rotation of all these old guys, the 70s and 80s, 80-year-olds, and they just keep repeating the same policies, and there's no change and there's no innovation, there's no creativity that's being exercised at any level, particularly in the government. So, you got somebody like this. He is a soldier. He's fighting for He could have resigned. He could have just that no confidence. He could have just disappeared, but he stuck to it, and he's continuing to fight. So I think his administration is going to be marred uh, by that. But I think, yeah, this it's just one of those things. They could have picked on anything that was the most obvious choice, but if it wasn't this campaign contribution or the social media expertise that was brought to bear and played a huge role in him winning. Of the people between 20 and 30 years old who voted, 60% of them voted for him. So people should learn a lesson from that, but instead they're continuing to attack him. So I wish him a lot of luck, and I think it's a flavor of what's to come. Actually, he's cutting the path for other people to do the same thing.
Yes, so Mario still wonders why not SNS, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, I think that probably one of the reasons is what Timothy mentioned, that the older generation politicians are not really that good at using SNS, and there is
yeah.
always, you know, that thing happening. Why should you be benefiting from something that we cannot, are not able to use? Well, I
Yeah.
may be mistaken here, but who knows really?
No,
Okay, yeah,
it used to be money, but the older guys had more control over the money. They had more money, and so that's how they fought the fight. This is a different kind of fight. So they're not prepared for it. They don't like it that way. The rules have changed, and yeah, it's going. I mean, this friction between, uh, it's really a dynamic social change that's we're going through. Probably we can't even figure it out until it's been behind us for 5 or 10 years. People are writing PhD thesis on it, and we can understand it a little bit better. But we're right in the thick of it now.
yes, we are. Okay, going back to the previous topic, two topics actually. The first one about the 4-day work week from Hiroko-san. We have the downside of the initiative. This is that it leads to wage cut based on the principle no work, no pay. Okay, as Maya said, many mid to small sized companies have 6-day work week. They cannot afford to
Yeah.
take a 5-day work week. Yeah, that's true. Okay, maybe some of them will be able to adjust to. Yes, Timothy?
So the thing about this, yes, it's a double-edged sword. It might lead to wage decreases, work for pay. You're supposed to be here 5 days or 6 days a week. You're supposed to show up half
Hmm.
of Saturday. I've been in a company that I was required to be there on half a Saturday too. Kind of destroys your entire weekend. But I think what this does is it provides a huge impetus for AI. So AI is just growing by leaps and bounds. Microsoft has just made a request to the U.S. government for nuclear power to be integrated so that they have the power to run these data centers. They're huge consumers of data, but AI integrates all of this information in a new way. It's not like a server. It's not like web servers. It's a completely different technology. But AI does, I mean, it can supplement, 20-30% of the work that you would normally do. It maybe, skillfully handled in the next 4 or 5 years, it could reduce the workload and allow people to take more time off. So there's a huge profit motive there for integrating that new technology. And in any event, you can't have children fast enough for Japan to supplement the loss of workers that they have right now. So they're between a rock and a hard place. But I think that's why there's so much emphasis being spent on AI.
Indeed. Yes. Okay, thank you for that comment. And the other one from Jean-Baptiste uh, Sebastian Boar. So for foreign students, we're going back to the topic of foreign students here. For foreign students working in Japan, one issue is that they often go back to their country afterwards or move to another country. So how the question is how to make them work in Japan and notably retain them over the long term can be an issue if the grant is considered an investment by the
Yeah.
government. Yes.
So this is mostly being directed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So
Hmm.
you have the JET program. We're familiar with the JET program where they hire um, people who have finished college all throughout the world. It's not just the United States. It's not just England. All over the place. They bring them to Japan. They put them in a high school or they put them in a small community, and they begin to integrate this kind of international feeling. This is a guy from, I don't know, from Bangladesh or from America. It's the first time you've seen somebody with green eyes or something like that. This process has been going on for many, many years. I'm a beneficiary of that. Mombusho came up. This was the Ministry of Education came up with a program to bring postgraduate students to Japan to study the whatever the academic pursuit of their choice within Japan. And when you compare Japan postgraduate education to other countries, it really ranks low. But when you bring the foreigners in, it has a tendency of pulling this up. But you've got lots of people who were Mombusho scholars, Fulbright scholars. Fulbright is this joint program where the United States sends 20 or 30 or maybe 60 scholars to Japan for a year, maybe 2 years. And the Japanese do the same thing to the United States. So this kind of cross-fertilization. But many of those people, they become like Japan hands. They listen to this program. A lot of the people here in the audience benefited from that. That's how they became so good. That's how they learned how to master Japanese, because somebody was supporting them while they were going through that process and picking up skills. And they become really valuable working in these foreign capital companies in Japan, or even the Japanese companies who are selling products, or they have a big component of their business in the foreign countries. We know a lot of people like that just between me and you, Maya. I mean, Tokyo is full of these kinds of individuals who help and they facilitate. But similarly, they go back to their country and they join the Japan Society, or they continue to keep a relationship with the the Japanese embassy, and they help facilitate the trade and the cultural exchange and that sort of thing. So Japan ranks really high in terms of international appreciation. People want to come to Japan. I don't think it's the highest. I think it's one of the highest tourist destinations in the world. People love to come here. More than 3 million come to Japan every month to visit, to eat, to look at the temples, to walk around, to see what is, why do people say that Japan is so cool? And they come here and then they realize it's clean, it's safe, the food is delicious, it's inexpensive. It's on TV almost all the time. So this cross-fertilization, it's not just the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but it's a long-term gamble, and I think it's really paid good dividends. Unfortunately, the economy being as it is right now, the amount of trade, foreign trade, that is coming out of Japan as an export vehicle has not grown in 10 years. So we all think of Japan as an export country. It's an export economy. In some regard, that is true, but it is not predominantly an export market, and the level of growth for the export market has not increased. So there's a lot of things that are going on here that impact this particular discussion. But what a great comment.
Yes, it is. And also, I have noticed from my colleagues in Globis, colleagues coming from abroad to study here, they graduate, and some of them do have difficulty finding jobs here in with Japanese corporations because their Japanese language skills are not so good. And well, that's another reason. But well, I think that things are going to once again be adjusted, and it will take time again, because nothing happens overnight in Japan. It takes longer, maybe 3 or 4 times longer than it does in other countries. The Japanese language is not an easy language to learn. The culture is not an easy culture to understand and abide by, or just be strategic about. But yes, we're going to.
Whenever we say that, whenever we say the Japanese language is not a very easy language to master, our Japanese friends, what the hell are you talking about? You should try English. Yeah, English is so difficult. Yet there are thousands of Japanese who mastered English, and great Japanese speakers all over the place. Japan in Tokyo is replete with people, even shopkeepers. You walk into shop and people are speaking English. So it's a funny thing.
It is indeed, yes. Okay, and also we have a comment about the government spending and the tax raises, the hikes here from Patricia saying that there is never a word about actually reducing taxes or reducing government spending. It's always talking about spending more and more and more. And I know that some people would argue that government spending actually stimulates the economy and also stimulates corporations here in the country. Well, there is a lot to be said here. I know that the divide is very, wide between the people who believe this and people who don't. But yeah, we are obviously on the way or on the road to increasing an increased taxes and more government spending.
So that's from Patricia.
From Patricia, yes.
Thank you very much for that comment. So right now we are undergoing an experiment in that. So part of the conversation so far has been, the government is doing things that individuals can't do, or they're providing a service that individually or even collectively we can't do. We have to rely on the government for healthcare or for roads, for highways, for the provision of infrastructure, that sort of thing. And as a consequence of that, like Patricia says, the taxes keep increasing, the encroachment of government in these areas that really they shouldn't be in, but they're in because bureaucrats they never change, they never reduce, they're always concerned with expanding their reach. We're going through an experiment now in the United States with the new administration of Donald Trump, and he's approaching it from a different. He's going to reduce that. He's going to push that down and make government as small as possible. So I think that sort of thing. It takes a long time to really show the benefits of, but I know that the new administration is really committed to doing that, not just for retribution, but also as a strategy. How can we reduce that? And I mean, the whole thing is make America great again. So reduce the amount of money that the government is spending so that they don't have to tax everybody, and make things a little bit more streamlined. And so people are going to be watching that. Japan is going to be watching that carefully. And maybe, if it goes really well, you've got two smart guys that are working on that. Maybe if it makes a big impact, it might become a wave of how government is run in the future. But yeah, I think like you said, Patricia, you probably don't like the comment about Donald Trump and what he's going to be doing. I know a lot of people are opposed to that, but it is a strategy that I think merits at least a little bit of consideration, because what we have been doing now in Japan has still not gotten out of the quagmire that it's been in economically for the last 25 or 30 years. So a new idea, a new way of doing that is probably worth looking into.
Right, okay. All right, yes. So, and then once again, we have two more comments. One of them is on YouTube from Focus 9912. That is the handle name of our listener, who says, "As a Malaysian, seeing Ishiba getting a minority government gives me vibes like when Ismail Sabri became our prime minister, also a minority government by technicality and have faction issues." Well, we do not comment foreign politics here. So thank you very much for giving us that parallel. And then, the comment continues. But this, yes, Timothy.
Yeah, we don't comment that much, but there's so much turmoil going on. Look at France. Look at England. It's not just what's going on here in Japan or in the United States. There will be more turmoil in the United States. We all know that. There's a huge change that's going on, but it's not. It seems to be somebody spiked the water or something. It's not just here. It seems to be a global thing that's going on. I think because of technology, because of the economy, because of BRICS, because of a lot of different things. We're just in such flux right now. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, that's okay. I was going to finish reading the comment. So, but Sabri's government with the opposition managed to get some meaningful reform. Unfortunately, his party lost seats in the election. And while the next prime minister from the then opposition also have some reforms. Okay. And then in Clubhouse, we've got Cam. Cam, thank you very much for the congratulations. We appreciate you being with us and taking interest in this podcast. So Cam's comment is about tourism and how unfortunate it is that more of these tourists coming to Japan cannot be dispersed to rural areas here. And yes, we have talked about this. This is still, a matter of management. Once again, I take issue with the term over tourism because it's not that much about over tourism. It's about managing tourist flows and sending them to rural areas where there are a lot of tourism resources. There is a lot of history. There are a lot of activities that could be actually enjoyed by those tourists. Unfortunately, there is a probably lack of coordination between the central government, the National Tourism Authority of Japan, and the local tourism authorities when it comes to promotion, when it comes to, once again, redirecting the tourist flows. But that's what we're having at the moment. Okay, Timothy, I'm sorry. I think that you wanted to comment on this as well. And
No,
apologies
no,
for
no,
waiting.
I'm good. It's always great to hear from Cam. I very curious about how things are going on your end too.
Very curious about that. Hopefully, we can, yes, talk about this sometime soon. Great. Well, Timothy, it looks like we have finally gone through all the comments, all the congratulatory messages. Thank you very
Yes.
much, everybody who has been with us for all these 200 episodes, or even for a fraction of them. We are here because of you. And
Mhm.
Timothy, a huge thank you to you as well, because I know that you're scared every morning, every Sunday morning, and you still come, and face the fear
I
and
still
show up.
come. I don't know
Yes,
why, but
right. I don't know why either, but that's how it is. You are a strong person, if I can say that. I hope I don't sound too
well, thank
aerosol.
no, thanks to you, Maya, and thanks to everybody else because I get encouragement from, the comments that we received and just the fact, that people are interested in what I do for a living. Um, you know, Working Japanese politics, it's not easy, it's not simple, and it's not everybody's cup of tea. But to have this opportunity to tell people about what I'm doing and how I'm doing things and what kind of things are going on, it's really rewarding. I think everybody who is really serious about their profession would love to have this kind of opportunity to tell the world about what it is that they're doing, whether it's
Yeah,
finances or legal or anything like that. But we just happen to be in a unique position. Not many people are talking about Japanese politics um, like we do. I don't think anybody else in the world is doing it. So it's really rewarding that we have such a great audience.
it is indeed. And one thing that I would like to add here is that we still need to bridge the gap between politics and how you got into politics and why you are so well informed about politics. If you allow me to
Me
say this,
personally.
you personally,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Yes, because, well, to everybody who still wonders how politics is related to Timothy's everyday work, it is that, well, he does government relations and public policy. Research and analysis for companies that want to come to Japan, that need government permits for operating here or selling their products here in Japan. So if you have such a project, of course, in mind, or if you have friends or colleagues who are thinking about this and they still need to connect with the Japanese government and the politicians here, with Kasumi Gaseki as well, this is what Timothy does. So do
Yeah.
not hesitate and call him.
So if I can put a finer point on that, thanks very much, Maya. So a lot of people suspect or they think I'm professor or I'm teaching politics or something like that. And this is just a byproduct of what I do on a daily basis. Foreign companies, more frequently than Japanese companies, in fact, most of my business is dealing with foreign companies. They have an issue here in Japan. They're trying to solve that issue. They've tried it several different ways since I've been here for so long. I've been here for more than 40 years, and I've been integrated in major corporations at a very high level, either as general counsel or as vice president of public policy. Getting their issues done, it's a very fine art. It's a difficult thing. You have to have a lot of connections. You have to have a lot of experience, broad experience. You have to have won a few, or you have to have lost a few. And that's not everybody's cup of tea. Usually you have a profession, you're pursuing that profession, medical or legal or something like that. It's a very different profession than this one here. So when Maya, you came up with this idea of supplementing Tokyo on Fire with something else, something a little bit easier and breezier, it was easy for me to accept just talking about what's going on in Japanese politics, because I'm walking the halls all the time. I know the individuals. I know what's going on to a certain degree. And to have an audience that's actually interested in that sort of thing is so rewarding. But it's not what I get generally paid for. I get hired from time to time to give a briefing to executives who are coming into town, or to speak to a chamber of commerce or that sort of thing. But this is just something that we do because the audience has a need for it, and it's fun, and it's not that much heavy lifting for us. And all I have to do is wake up a little bit earlier and cut off just a small portion of my Sunday morning to spend with you. So it's easy.
Okay, thank you very much also for letting me know that there is something there which goes even beyond your fear every Sunday morning. All right, yes, thanks a lot to everybody. And
Thank
oh, here is just one more.
No, you can't go back on your word there. I was already getting ready to open the door and leave.
Okay, yes, okay. Mehran, please forgive me for this. We'll answer your question next Sunday morning because Timothy is eager to go, and it's already, yes, we have been going for almost an hour and a half.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, and thanks a lot. Your question will be answered there. So, to everybody who stayed with us, we wish you a great Sunday and also a bright new week there. We'll be here once again next week at 8:20. It's a kind of an odd time, but well, that's what it is. And in the meantime, yes, I would like to say once again a big thank you to our sponsors, Kanagawa Chuo Jutaku or Kanchu. You can find them at kanachu.com and connect with James at kanachu.com, and also Houze Inc. and Hana Howell. Hana responds, she represents the two companies, and you can find her at hana@kanachu.com. Thanks a lot. Have a great day, and also see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.